Welcome to the Future Hamburg Talks. In preparation of our today's talk and our guest, I felt a bit like living in a Marvel or DC universe because did you know that in Hamburg and the metropolitan region, the world's largest X-ray is located not so far from here? It starts and it's 3.4 kilometers long and of course underground. And today's visitor, Dr. Arwen coordinates a visitor center because the X-ray is located as a research facility called European XFEL. Dr. Arwen, welcome to the Future Hamburg Talks.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So we found a really cool and interesting quote from you that actually sums up what the visitor center is about. The European XFEL Visitor Center is a place where people interested in science can learn and be entertained. Here we want to explain the facility in such a simple way that it's not too complicated for researchers and still easy to understand for beginners. Before we go into the offers of the visitor center, maybe you give us a short and brief explanation what the European XFEL is and why it's so unique.
Yeah, so European XFEL is, as you said, the world's largest X-ray laser. That means that we can produce very high energy X-rays, and they come in very short pulses, thousands per second. And that means that we can see, using this X-ray wavelength, very small objects, so like molecules like you have inside your body or inside everything, I guess. So we can see these very small things, and the cool thing about it is that our pulses are also very, very short, and that means it's a bit like the camera team here. If they use a very short shutter speed, they can film someone running and freeze that movement. And we have short enough pulses in the femtosecond range that we can freeze the movement of molecules. So we can watch them moving and see how they work, and that's very, very exciting for scientists.
Okay, and maybe for us, because I'm not so familiar with science, but for example, I was really proud when I learned about that the 2024 Nobel Prize winners in chemistry did research at the XFEL, the European XFEL. But maybe what other projects and research is done that really affects our everyday lives?
Yeah, so we have quite a lot of different scientific disciplines. So we have these 7 instruments that all use the same X-ray beam, but use it to look at very different molecules. So we have materials scientists who, for example, look at nanoparticles. We have chemists who can look at, say, catalysts for splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen, which is useful for future energy sources. We have biologists who look at molecules like the ones in our bodies. So, for example, if you have a bacteria that is showing resistance to an antibiotic, then you can look at the molecule, the protein from that bacteria, and see how it binds to that antibiotic and how you could perhaps disrupt that using a slightly different shaped medicine molecule. So we can look at many areas of science, sort of physics, chemistry, geophysics, plasma, biology, lots of different things. But yeah, I guess it's important to us that in the future this fundamental research contributes to applications that can help society and that can help us solve some of the challenges that we face with things like energy and climate and health and these kinds of things that affect all of us.
And that's very versatile. And as I learned, there are more than 12 partner countries involved, and there are more than 450 employees working there. And how is life there on the campus? So if I would come and visit the campus, what would be my expectation maybe, and what would the everyday life look like?
So we have a very mixed international staff from all over the world. So we often speak English to each other, but of course you hear German in the corridor because we're in Hamburg, and also other languages where we have staff from other places. And I guess the other thing perhaps to mention is we have our sort of scientists and engineers and administrative staff who live here and work at the X-ray laser European XFEL, but we also have guest scientists from all over the world. So we have a sort of competitive process where you as a scientist can apply for beam time and say, I have a really exciting experiment that has really useful applications, and I really need these particular X-rays in order to find out how this system works. And this is then judged by a panel of experts, not from us, but an international team who knows about this kind of science, and they then allocate who can have this beam time. And the beam time is so precious that these people, they come to us for a week from all over the world, and they really work night shift. They are there in the middle of the night doing their scientists' work there at the beam line, and our people are there to support them. And it's very, very exciting for them if they can go home at the end of their beam time with good results that they can publish. This is important for their scientific career, and of course important if they're hoping to understand the world around us and contribute to these applications that are so useful.
Arwen, what qualifies a researcher to have the possibility to do research at the European XFEL?
The beam time is allocated by an expert committee. So the researchers write a proposal that describes both their existing experience and expertise, but also the experiment that they plan to do. And I guess it's interesting to this jury, this committee, to find out both why this experiment is exciting and why it needs to happen, particularly at the European XFEL, where we have these X-rays of a particularly special quality, and also, the experience of the researcher that shows that they know how to work with that kind of thing, and that their research has a solid founding.
In your opinion, what characterizes Hamburg and the metropolitan region that so many scientists come here to do research?
For us, the connection to DESI and to Science City Bahrenfeld is super important. So we have this strong area of the city of Hamburg there with the Science City Bahrenfeld, where there are lots of different research organizations that many of whom benefit from DESI having this amazing accelerator technology where they can produce these high-quality X-rays. So there are many researchers there at DESI, and our X-ray laser, the European XFEL, that starts on the DESI campus in Bahrenfeld. DESI provides our superconducting linear accelerator, which runs for just under 2 kilometers from Bahrenfeld to Osdorf. And then after that, we take over, those of us who sit on the Schenefeld side from European XFEL, and we run the accelerated particles over something called an undulator. This lets us produce very high quality X-rays. So DESI gives us the high energy. We produce then the X-rays from that. And then at the campus in Schenefeld, just over the border from Hamburg, we have our experimental hall underneath the ground, and that's where we can do these experiments. So this connection of this science city with especially DESI, but also the universities and the Max Planck Institute, and I'm probably forgetting some other people who would like to be mentioned, but these partners are really important to us.
So it's like a cooperation of different parties that make it all possible.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about researchers and people coming from all over the world to Hamburg and the metropolitan region to do great things on different topics. But now you want to make it more accessible, understandable, and get people more excited about science. That's why in November 2024, a visitor center called Lighthouse was opened. So why now is there a visitor center, and who do you want to reach out to come and visit the center?
Yeah, well, ideally everybody, but I guess people who have any interest in science should definitely come. We have a couple of different things in this Lighthouse building. So we have conference facilities, especially for scientific conferences. We also have a permanent exhibition that explains the facility and how we make our X-rays and the research we can do with them and the applications that has. And that's a hands-on exhibition like at a museum, where you can turn handles and look at original parts and watch videos and read information, sort of different kinds of interactive experiences there. And we also have a school lab. So school classes can book a day out with us, and they can come with their teachers, and we have these 2 labs for physics and for molecular biology, and they can spend a day doing hands-on experiments where they really try something out for themselves that is close to our research, but also close to the school curriculum, that they can learn something that's very useful for them, but in a hands-on way, using equipment that they probably wouldn't have access to at most schools.
And why is it so important to create a place and maybe also a safe space where you can really, as you said, experience science?
I think there's a few reasons. So, of course, we have the self-interested thing that we would like to get the next generation of scientists inspired and ready to take up a career in science. But, of course, we also want to pay something back. So, we're funded by these 12 countries. Their funding, of course, comes from their taxpayers. We would like to show people what their money has contributed to and how interesting that is. And I think there's also this aspect of human curiosity, and science is fascinating and fun, and we want to share that joy of scientists with our visitors.
As you've been working for the European XFEL for quite some time, what was the most interesting or exciting project that you got to know, or maybe what had the most impact?
So I must admit I'm not a researcher, but I'm in the communication department. And I guess one of the things that I find exciting, I guess I've got a background in looking at these biological molecules like proteins. And usually when you do work like that, you have to crystallize this protein. So you have, for example, in the hemoglobin in your blood that carries the oxygen around your body, there's these proteins. And there are lots of different ones in your body that have different jobs. But if you want to work on them, you usually have to create a protein crystal. And this is difficult. It's a bit of a pain. So during my PhD, I did not succeed in doing that with my protein. It didn't crystallize, and so the fact that European XFEL has these particularly bright X-rays means that they can either work with smaller crystals that are a less nice sample, which opens up the world to more difficult proteins that are harder to crystallize, and then particularly excitingly, they can work with single molecules in solution, which is how your cells in your body are, right? They're full of liquidy stuff, salty water kind of stuff, and that's where the proteins are in their natural environment. So seeing them in real time do their movements in a reasonably realistic environment compared to other experiments is really quite cool.
If we have a look into the future, so where is the European XFEL going, as well as the Visitor Centre? What are your plans and your visions?
So European XFEL, of course, has a strategy out to 2030 of how they want to increase the science that can be done and the quality of the beam time that we can offer to international scientists. And we also have increasingly sort of focused calls for proposals where a particular area of science that is particularly exciting or useful is sort of being drawn on. So the physics of water is particularly fascinating. We had a special call on the coronavirus, of course, a couple of years ago. So these focused calls in science are coming more. And then I would say with our sort of outreach programs to the public, we've just built this new visitor centre and we very much want to fill it with life. So at the moment in the school labs, we have a module on Xray physics for senior high school and a module on PCR reactions, as you know from your coronavirus test, PCR reactions for senior high school students. So there, of course, we want to expand the offer to cover more age groups, to cover more experiments, to offer teacher trainings. And of course, as well as the permanent exhibition, we've got temporary exhibitions. At the moment, there's a local group with sculpture and sound art and light that we've got. We've got another art exhibition starting in March as well. So every few months, we hope to have different exhibitions coming in. And of course, we'll have an events program. So with things like evening science lectures or hands-on things for different age groups, including, hands-on science and craft activities. So this sort of link between different interests that people have and how that relates to science is something that we'd like to bring to the fore through this program of events that we'll have regularly.
So there you do put indeed a lot of effort into really experience science into different ways.
Definitely.
Arwen, could you please complete the sentence? The Metropolitan Region Hamburg to me is
open, like very, very international. I think, partly I'm at an international research institute and that contributes to my feeling of how international the Science City Bahrenfeld is. But I think the fact that Hamburg has this history of being a harbour, of being a centre for trade and for things coming from overseas, in comparison to other places that I've lived, I really noticed the openness here in Hamburg. It's very nice.
Arwen, thank you so much for joining us at the Future Hamburg Talks today and putting so much effort and energy into this visitor center at the European XFEL. If you liked our talk today, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.